can come up with so many like reasons why I like Doctor Who, you know, like the sheer variety, just the potential, the unlimited potential, but like the thing that's been hiding in plain sight all this time is that like I will watch this show because of the Doctor. It's because of this character in particular that I will watch stuff that I would never watch. I would never watch something like The Smugglers, or I don't know, like the Doctor just having the same character appear throughout is just endlessly fascinating, which means that there's like the Doctor is the most interesting thing about Doctor Who. That's not what Matt Smith looks like at all. That looks like an almost person. God, this sounds like the start of one of my theories, doesn't it? Okay, so clearly this is like, it's not just Amy who's the flesh, the Doctor is the flesh. So the Doctor's flesh, because it's basically a carbon copy of the Doctor, saved Amy, killed the Amy flesh, which is, you know, all kinds of unethical, but I guess he gets a bit murdery when, like, do you see how it's like, it's, everything about the Doctor's character is just endlessly fascinating. Like, they're such a good character, like, I mean, you know, I love the Master, and the Master's amazing, you know, I'm always more excited to see the Master than the Doctor, but am I? Like, I imagine this show could just go so many places that wouldn't be interesting to me if it wasn't for the Doctor. They're entertaining, you know? They are incredibly entertaining as a character. And there's so much, like, depth within them. And every story we see is just a part of their story. And this character, like, I think the consistency of the Doctor being a character, like, it just makes it better and better, and like having access to all these stories that the Doctor's been in. Like, how long's Doctor Who been going on for? Like, what, 60 something years? Like, that's a ridiculous amount of time. This person's been through all those things, and this is what the result is. Anyway, yeah, so the Doctor's the flesh. This is the flesh Doctor, and it's basically like the Doctor in Extremis, where it's an AI Doctor basically saving the day in that story. And this is, again, another copy of the Doctor, but this character is just too powerful that if you even try to simulate them, they will defeat you because you did that. Like, you know, they will just, they're too powerful. I don't know. Anyway, so you can't make a copy of the Doctor or they will defeat you. And this happens to the monks, and it's happening to the Silence. Because this is clearly a Silence Doctor. Because that's not Matt Smith's face. You can't convince me of that. There's a flesh vibe to that. Anyway. So they become... Wait. Are there two versions of the Doctor? Wait, yeah, the Doctor gets erased at the end of series 5. Wait, no, that wouldn't be this Doctor then. Unless it is. I mean, did the story basically diverge at one point in series 5? You know, is there the real Doctor who has barely, you know, not interacted with Amy that much, although they have to be the ones that I guess the Flesh Doctor could just become the real Doctor very easily. You know, they are the same person. The Doctor probably has so many copies around the universe. That's how the Doctor glues the universe together, by becoming a legend woven in history by the strength of their skills and their character. They stop the baddies. In any story you tell of them, you can't tell a story where the Doctor ultimately loses. You know, all that is an incomplete story. Anyway, so yeah, the Doctor's the Flesh. Oh my god. Shit, right. So what are the implications? When does either the main Doctor or the Flesh Doctor die? Or do we just have lots of Doctors milling about the universe? Honestly, the amount of world-ending, universe-ending things that happens to this Doctor, and that's just on Earth. That probably means there's so many Doctors, like, you know, maybe not a Doctor for every... In fact, yeah, no, it probably is the case. There's probably a Doctor for every fucking country. Like, and every planet. You know, Sutekh was laying eggs of death, but somehow the Doctor was laying eggs of the Doctor. Maybe that's why the Doctor very rarely returns to a planet, because there's usually a Doctor saving that planet, kind of dedicated to them. I wonder if multi-Doctor stories happen. I don't know. Wait, okay, I'm forgetting what I'm talking about. Like, regeneration is amazing, not just because it makes the show survive. That's not the best thing about regeneration. I mean, it kind of is, but like, hand in hand, every regeneration is basically a subconscious a manifestation of your unconscious. You know, it's always a reaction to something. It's not just like who they are is defined by their unconscious, you know. So everything's endlessly fascinating about how the Doctor interacts with things. Because everything about the Doctor, because of regeneration, because regenerations are based on your unconscious, really. So, yeah. Like, to describe the Doctor in human terms would be ridiculous. The Doctor, having lived this long and being from another planet, is basically to us like a fairy, you know, one of the Fae. Just a magical trickster, that's what they are. So like, this is not just an old human, this is a fantasy character, this is one of the Fae. This is not just a human, and to describe them as just, oh, this person who lots of stuff happens to. It's not that. It's like there's something alien about the Doctor. and their unconscious is so deeply and brazenly displayed with each and every regeneration they have. And each regeneration we get teaches us a bit more about this person, this creature, this mythical being. Like, the Doctor's so charismatic and magnetic and interesting. Like, even them at their most boring, i.e. Peter Davison, they are utterly fascinating, you know, to be boring, just kinda... it still speaks so much. Not that Peter Davison wasn't good. I love Peter Davison, like his Doctor, but the Fifth Doctor was kind of the worst. And like, there's Troughton, who is the one Doctor who I can't quite see as the Doctor, and like, I kind of have to, but also like, a lot of times I just see the character that Troughton's playing rather than the Doctor, and it's hard to connect those dots. But I know the more I watch it, eventually I will connect those dots, and I'll know more about the Doctor, and once I can connect up how Troughton, who I know this is like a ridiculous take to say that Troughton is the least doctory Doctor, because in a way, you know, Troughton is such an incredibly integrally doctory Doctor, you know. It all makes sense, but I just don't quite see it. I don't feel it, you know. And even watching this episode, like, if this teaches me new things about the Doctor, then I find out about potential new ways that Troughton is the Doctor. Kind of looks like Troughton here. I don't know, kind of looks like Solid Snake, actually. In a tuxedo. Alright. Like, who the hell actually would just, like, decide to do the plot of the Christmas Carol to someone because... like, this is someone who's more like the ghosts in the Christmas Carol than any one human, you know? This is a creature of legend. I tried to watch One Piece and I got like 100 episodes in, and it's such a long series, you know, it's like, what, like 1,100 and something episodes at the moment, and I stopped because just the characters aren't interesting, you know. Like, Doctor Who has the adventure, but it has possibly the most interesting character on television, and it, like, the most interesting fictional character of them all. I don't fucking know, but he's really interesting. And you know, the connection to Earth is, you know, becomes a sort of reflection of us in a way. I don't know. I ignore that. And the Master is, you know, an incredibly charismatic, magnetic presence too. Like, the Foil, who is the person in the universe most similar to the Doctor. Like, being a sort of dark reflection of the Doctor is really, really interesting. And, you know, It's the perfect baddie, the dark reflection of the Doctor. They were once so similar, and yet they took so different paths. It's all about choice, Mr. Anderson. Choice is what makes it, I don't know, can't remember. Yeah, I guess Agent Smith wasn't the one going for choice. That was Neo's deal. Was like, I choose, or something. That's like ultimate. In their like final fight, he's like, why do you persist? And he was like, cause I choose to. And I never really grasped how that was a good line, but I guess like I need to just engage more with the themes. The Doctor chooses to be good and the Master chooses to be bad. And the dark reflections of each other is great. And the Master being the way they are, just like really shows how like the Doctor's teetering on the edge of being a good person and a bad person, and they're such good character stuff at the center of the show. Just every regeneration is just another reflection of the Doctor. It's what makes it so exciting and why it's so important that it must continue with the current continuity. Although, like, why don't they just have two versions of Doctor Who going, Two separate programs. I don't know, it sounds kind of amazing. Different takes on the show. Why restrict to the formula of Doctor Who to just what it is? But anyway, yeah. So every regeneration just like deepens our understanding of the Doctor. Doctor Who right now is more like every time there's more Doctor Who, it enriches all of it, which is why I can watch stuff in a genre opposite to what I would usually watch and just be riveted. I don't know. And just the Doctor is pure entertainment as well. It's like, even at the worst and blandest, it's hard for that to be boring. Because it's still a reflection of the Doctor. And the fact that the show is called Doctor Who, like, even though we know so much about the character, there's still layers to them that we don't understand. It is the perfect name for the show. It's not just a relic of, when it was made and we didn't know much about the Doctor. Even while we still know loads about the Doctor, the ultimate question is, who is this person who does all these things? That is a centrally interesting thing about Doctor Who. The variety and potential is all amazing as well. But yeah, the Doctor Who, the best thing about it is asking the question, who is this person? There's just so many levels you can look at it, A lot of people just stick with just analysing the Doctor as if they are just a human, just a regular person. Anyone could be the Doctor. But there's so many other ways to look at the Doctor as well. And the fact that all of these things are true at once. And they're just different angles to look at the same gem. And the way it portrays humans in contrast to the Doctor, like the Doctor just needs a human around so that they can see the world through a human's eyes, because we are mortal. there's something special about humans too, which is, also a deeply interesting question. What is it the Doctor sees in humans? So, it starts making you ask about humanity as well as the Doctor. The fact that the Doctor needs to see through our eyes speaks to the magic of mortality. How the fact that we all die is a good thing. It imbues our lives with meaning. The fact that our lives could end at any moment gives a fire to our actual reality. The Doctor is this amazing, charismatic, endlessly interesting character, but ultimately they need what we have. To the Doctor, we are that magical creature just like he is to us. He's travelled all across the universe and found us. We're his own personal brand of heroine. The Doctor doesn't really go outside of humans much at all. We are Bella, he is Edward. Wait, so who's Jacob? It's a show that glorifies silliness and immaturity, he says, this shows that I'm a mature and responsible adult. What does he say?
I think you'll find I'm universally recognised as a mature and responsible adult.
Yeah, he's universally recognised as a mature and responsible adult. And then it turns out that that's the lie that's too big for him to actually get it to go there. Which tells us so much about the character, that they're not very responsible or mature. They left Susan there. They didn't come back for Susan. They're not responsible. They're not, ultimately, despite them being basically the Jesus of the universe, they're also kind of a dick. And, it's not that their good side always prevails. It does to an extent. That is ultimately the direction they choose to go. But they are silly. And why are they silly? Is that the best way to be? Is the wisdom of the ages to be silly and not responsible? That doesn't sound good. This immortal being is still wrestling with whether to be good or not, and not always following the path of good. They suck. They're not responsible and they're not mature, but they have the best intentions, sort of, except when they don't, because they're constantly wrestling. I don't know. Anyway, my point being, this little throwaway joke of finally a lie too big tells us magnitudes about the character. The Doctor is the central force, fascination character of Doctor Who. There's so many angles to look at the show. There's so many different reflections of sides to this crystal, competing angles. And I think that's part of what makes it good fodder for theories. Because theories can deepen your interpretation of a show, with the theories I do for, like, most other things, but there's so many angles to Doctor Who that, I don't know, but I also just love the show. It's, even the grimier bits keep getting brighter, although, I can get kind of sick of stories, but when my expectations are at their lowest, that's when an episode has the most chance of appealing to me seeing it in a new light. If we're going to bring Trinitarian Christianity into the world of Doctor Who, what surely happened is that God incarnated themselves as a human who was fully human and fully God. And they jumped into the time stream, the grave time stream thing that Clara jumped into. They do that for the Doctor. God killed a piece of themselves in order to create the Doctor, to sustain the Doctor, to incarnate good throughout the universe. Because the Doctor survives so many things that could only be, like, coordinated by God, Maybe the TARDIS is the Holy Spirit. Jesus jumped into the time stream that Clara jumped into, but I guess that timeline got changed, so Jesus jumped into a different one, presumably an earlier one. Clara jumping into his time stream to save him was maybe unnecessary. I don't know. Why did Clara need to do that unless Jesus did it subsequently? I guess the only thing God needs to do is do it at some point. It doesn't really matter when, because it's going throughout the Doctor's history. But they're just making sure that the Doctor survives everything, and maybe manipulating the Doctor towards goodness. God and the Doctor are one, Jesus didn't die on a cross, he jumped into the Doctor's time stream. God did a Clara. How else do you... I don't know what that question was, but yeah. If you're a Trinitarian and you want to see your worldview in Doctor Who, this is the only path available. Maybe Gallifrey is heaven. There are many forms of hell. Try Christianity, kids. The Trinitarian kind. You won't be disappointed. For the record, Arians for the win. Not that I'm Christian anymore. Arians, though, they were done dirty by the Nicene Council. So in the Doctor Who universe, God is the creator, and the reason why they have Jesus and the Holy Spirit is because the creator can't affect the universe once they've created, They need to incarnate themselves in different ways in order to actually interact with the universe beyond the original creation. That's the Doctor and the Holy Spirit. Which means the rest is on us. You can't rely on you can't rely on a God to just make everything better. It is up to us. The morality of just life. That's massively up to us. God sort of helps out where they can, but ultimately God helps out Father Christmas, if Father Christmas saved the day all the time and held the universe together. Look, when Jodie teleports all her companions through space and they end up just in a random point in space, well, not random, close to the planet, but that they're aiming for, but in space, and they should all die. But what should happen but the most impossible thing, given the probability? There's so many things the Doctor survives improbably, but the thing you can put the best number on, the most exposing thing about all of Doctor Who, is that Doctor Who is immortal. And that's because the Doctor and their companions just got saved by random passing spaceships in this random point in space. So the Doctor's life is infinite. Wait, what was I saying? So this confirms that Jesus was both fully human and fully God. Wow, what a Christian show. Oh, I hate it so much. Christianity has been so poisonous to me. But it's right there. This is a Trinitarian show. I don't know, is the TARDIS the Holy Spirit? Whatever. But yeah, if the Doctor gets saved in the vacuum of space, within the amount of time where there's no injury to them, there is basically God holding the universe together. Doesn't matter how many Claras jump in the time stream, she's not going to save the Doctor in every instance, because she's not God. But God is God. Jesus was God. I mean, maybe Jesus never actually happened. Well, maybe Jesus was never God, but there is a Jesus out there. It's a legend echoing back through time. But whether or not it was our Jesus or whatever, God did ultimately become mortal in order to save the universe by scattering themselves throughout time and using their powers to save the Doctor. Maybe that's ultimately who the Master is. The Master is the person who God could have chosen but didn't. Or does God sustain the Master as well? The Master does just have far more ability to survive than is ever explained. Therefore, the Master is a fact of the universe, just as the Doctor is. Did God create this? It seems a different technique from keeping the Doctor alive. I think something else. And, if you go with my theory that the Master is the Doctor's future, yeah, okay, I guess don't need to consider any of that. Ha 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 ha. Lol. When Tecteun, the Doctor's adoptive mum, when when she says that the Doctor is like a contagion, a virus for the universe that was like let loose. I think that's true. I think the Doctor is ultimately a creation of Gallifrey. Gallifrey is the creator. That's the secret deep at the heart of Gallifrey. Was Rassilon God? Is that what Rassilon is? Because like Rassilon has so many powers and stuff, you know, allegedly. Like they are like maybe the very idea of God congealed around the universe and manifested itself as Rassilon. Maybe it manifested itself in 3 ways in Rassilon. As the Doctor and perhaps as the Master. All of God's goodness and all of God's badness. And all of God's power. All different sides of God warring with each other to become the dominant. The Daleks are essentially fighting God. What if the Master can't regenerate? What if the Doctor, choosing to be evil, uses all the like magic knowledge and everything, and uses it for themselves and replicates themselves a bunch, and it's like regeneration in the way it creates lots of different masters, but that's ultimately what it is. Like the Master is eternal in the universe. When one Master dies, they disappear. Or just when one Master dies, another is incarnated. It's like with Carvanista, the Lupari. You know, there's one Lupari for every human, so if a Lupari dies, and almost all of them did, they will just be reincarnated back on Lupar. Carvanista wasn't mourning his species dying, he was mourning his friends dying. But yeah, maybe they're like, maybe each incarnation of Carvanista's species are like essentially regenerations, showing different facets of them. Anyway, so the Doctor, when they became purely selfish and letting go of their morals, they become the Master, and it's basically, yeah, they get reincarnated with their memories, and it means they are eternal. But what this means is that if the Master is the Doctor's future, which only makes sense, because the Doctor is basically an embodiment of all of life, all of our goodness and darkness. And it makes the point that it's always meaningful to choose good. You know, despite the Doctor turning bad, the good that they did does mean something. It has affected the universe, it has saved the universe. And the universe would be better with less of the Master. Like, the Master and the Doctor are both trying to prove to each other that they are like each other. like, trying to bring them to their side is to justify their own current decisions, you know. They're a constant challenge to each other, and yeah, I think the fact that the Master is the Doctor's future is the most enriching theory I've ever come up with. More enriching than the theory that Time Lords mind meld by touch. Like, this is my ultimate theory, because it deepens the Doctor and it deepens the Master. And yeah, that means the devil is also the opposite of the devil, the embodiment of all that is good and all that is bad, emanates from the same being. So yeah, the show's central thing about like the importance of choice and choosing to do good, most like particularly embodied within the Doctor themselves, is even when you choose bad things, the good things always matter, and it's always good to do good, right? It's about choice. I don't know, I think that's kind of cool. Alright, just as a note, for those of you who don't know, the reason why I suggest that the TARDIS is the Holy Spirit is because I believe that the TARDIS is very central to the saving of the universe. I think the TARDIS takes the Doctor to the exact times and places that will, you know, take the Doctor on a character arc to make them the universe saver. The TARDIS itself is a being of pure play as well. Perhaps that's such an important part of the universe's play. And the TARDIS needs the universe to be alive, to be able to play. So the Doctor being immature and irresponsible sense of play being a good thing that can hold the universe together. I don't know. But yeah, the TARDIS being the Holy Spirit is basically, you know, the TARDIS does keep the Doctor alive and keep the universe alive through the Doctor. The Holy Spirit guiding us. So when the Doctor basically summons a shark by hoping, and he's like, it's completely impossible that it would be in the same place today, you know, and then it appears and the Doctor's like, yeah, well, that's because it's Christmas. This implies, and the Doctor does actually like flex that he's Father Christmas earlier in the story. Maybe the Doctor did just take an incarnation to be Father Christmas, you know. Maybe they changed the universe in some way that made it Christmassy. Maybe the Doctor printed themselves a new copy of themselves, like in Heaven Sent. You just need a teleportation device, which is a fancy word for cloning. So the Doctor created different incarnations of themselves for different purposes, perhaps. You know, they used it for good. They became Father Christmas, and they jumped into what is presumably essentially the time stream of Christmas and scattered themselves throughout it. Or something, I don't know. The point being, how does the Doctor know? How is the Doctor Father Christmas? Why is the magic of Christmas enough to summon this shark against impossible odds, and the Doctor knows this to be the case. Was Hartnell Father Christmas, somehow? The dark truth. Wow, the Doctor looks down on us so much that they literally don't believe magic tricks. They think that just everyone pretends with a magic trick, you know? Like, it's a dance between magician and the audience. The audience pretends that the magician has guessed the correct card. Because when, you know, the Doctor's like, what, is this your cards? And then the kid's like, no. And then the Doctor pulls out another card and is like, that's because it's this card. And the kid's like, no. And the Doctor's like, stop it, you're doing it wrong. Which means that the Doctor's basically seeing us as so incompetent, so basic that they don't believe the magic tricks.
It was the 7 of diamonds.
They think the only way magic tricks actually make sense is, I guess maybe they overestimate our mortality and what short of a time that gives us. Just assumes that we'll never have the time and focus to go to the elaborate lengths you have to go to make a magic trick work. Yeah, I know, Doctor It's down humans, lol. Okay, so the controls for the ring ice cloud thing being isomorphic, and the Doctor says there's no such thing as isomorphic. I think the Doctor's correct, like, you know, when the Master had an isomorphic laser screwdriver that only responded to him, that was like a joke between him and the Doctor, because he knows that's not a thing, but he's not telling him the secret to like making it work, you know, the hidden button you need to press or whatever, you know. Anyway, yeah, so I think like it's not keying it to the person. It's doing a personality test, and the personality test basically, because the Doctor's like, yeah, it doesn't work on you anymore because your father would never have programmed it for the man you are now. So I think it was just a personality test, and the son needed to match the father's personality enough to use it. You know, if someone's enough of a dick, they get to use it, is essentially what's going on. That's why it doesn't work for the Doctor. And that's why it doesn't work for changed Kazran. The revival of the show is the show I truly love. But the classic era of the show is also... I don't know if I'd love the classic era like New Who. New Who it has my heart, you know. It is a show I deeply enjoy, whereas classic Who, I'm here for the Doctor, I'm here for the backstory, and there's lots of good times on the way. But yeah, the classic era is kind of the show I wouldn't watch unless it had the Doctor, but it does, and that makes it so special. It's so amazing that we have so much. So tragic that we've lost the stuff that we've lost. Hey, I heard that there have been Doctor Who fans turning up at the Film is Fabulous offices or whatever and demanding to see the show, like, yeah, as a timely thing. God, those people fucking suck, don't they? If you're doing that, don't do that. You suck. You're the worst. How can the fandom be this bad? I feel like most of it isn't. But, oh my god. yeah, those people suck. If you're watching this, don't fucking do it. Don't harass employees for something that they're already bringing you anyway. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. Anyway. Yeah. They suck. You suck if you're them. Don't. Okay, the Doctor's talking about how there is actually a honeymoon that exists, and it's made of honey, and it's a moon, apart from it's not actually honey. It's not actually a moon. It's a bit alive and a bit carnivorous. He's basically describing our moon from Kill the Moon. But in Kill the Moon, the Doctor's like, I think that's the last one of its kind in existence. The only one of its kind in existence. How is that possible? Like, there are so many moon objects in the universe. Why would the Doctor think that the one around Earth is the final one? We hear about suicide moons at the start of Series 9. So, did the Doctor do something to drive all these moons to kill themselves? Is the Shadow Proclamation monitoring all of the moons that are killing themselves? Did the Doctor do "you should kill us all on sight" thing that he did to defeat the Silence? Did he do that to the moons? Like the equivalent of that, but instead of "you should kill us all on sight," it was "you should kill yourself on sight as soon as possible. You should kill yourself on hatching." No, like, you should just die. Did the Doctor sacrifice the moons to save the universe? I mean, presumably that would be something the Doctor's forced to do. Maybe we're just showing the Doctor's brightest moments and their darkest moments. We're just not shown because it's not considered morally acceptable for the BBC to show this stuff. So there's just a whole bunch of darkness out there that we don't get to see because, all of the swearing is just extracted from it. This is a cleaned up version of Doctor Who. The darkness is just off screen and also hidden in the guise of the Master.